What is happening out there, Roto Scouts baseball fans? Always got to take a quick look down to the microphone, make sure that it's turned on these days after those few mishaps where I just kind of forgot to turn the mic on a busy day. Hopefully nobody out in the crowd is going to give me a heads up that like my camera's not on or that you can't hear me even though the mic looks like it's on. Welcome to the Monday show. Nice casual little 8-gamer today. We can kind of take our time, meander on through what looks like a fairly interesting slate. But we'll let everybody trickle into the chat. Looks like we've got a good group here already, just kind of hanging out. We've got Larry C, Stephen B, Kevin O, Calvin Dunn, Fanatic, Matt Tomlinson's here, Bird Nerd's here. Happy Monday back to you, Bird Nerd. I appreciate everybody hanging out. Appreciate everybody joining us. Trey's trickling in. Love it. Happy Shark Week to everybody. Any Shark Week fans in the crowd? I love Shark Week. Shark Week's always a blast. Kind of like a highlight of summer, TV-wise, every summer for the nature crowd, the Discovery watching folks out there. It's been on for like 35 years now. I remember just watching it as a kid as part of summer, and now it's just like, oh yeah, Shark Week. This will be fun to just put on during the day while I write about baseball. They've got Jason Momoa hosting it this year. He's an absolute lunatic. It's pretty funny. Trey was watching. Dude was crazy in the whale carcass last night. Yeah, they made a big fake whale carcass that shot Chum out the side and collected up all the sharks. Chuck's watching Guy Fieri right now. I was watching him too. Calvin Dunn. Love it. Excellent. I love knowing that I'm not the only one. So it's a baseball freak Shark Week, and welcome to the show. Love it. Don't go in the ocean. Megalodon is definitely down there. Giant squid. Yep. Probably going to go see the Meg too. I'm not going to lie. Saw the first one in the theaters and had a good time. Thought they should have done it R-rated though. That movie suffered by not being R-rated. I was kind of disappointed that the sequel's not R-rated also. It'll be fun, but if they had gone full R with it, it would have been a lot more fun. Yeah, the dude in Egypt, they were looking at that yesterday with the Red Sea and all the crazy shark attacks there with the the oceanic white tips. See, you learned something with this shit. God knows what fell out of my brain. Hopefully I still know about baseball, but I learned about sharks in the past 24 hours or so since we last spoke, guys. But welcome to the show. We've got basically everybody. All the regulars are hanging out in the chat for the most part. Let's see. Have I not said hi to anybody? Phil Still's in there. Chuck's in there. I think I said hi to Chuck. Calvin, I'm pretty sure I got everybody, but if I missed you, hello. Welcome to the show. Hit the like button. If you've not already done it, hit the subscribe button. The site is rotoscouts.com. All the content's up there. I finished off the article about 15 minutes ago, went game by game as usual. Got pretty deep into it. I think it's really interesting because we've got basically like 2 name brand pitchers, a couple reasonable options in like the mid-range, and then it kind of falls off a cliff. It's like the ocean, right? It just drops off a few hundred yards off the beach. I think we're dealing with that kind of a pitching slate today. So it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of targetable spots for some power upside. Interesting one to talk through, dive into. So let's get into it. First game on deck, Rockies and the Nats. Oh, this is where I tell everybody to play Patrick Corbin and everybody just signs off and goes and watches a different show because nobody wants to be told to play Patrick Corbin. But I do think I'm going to do it. I do think he's on the board. As uncomfortable as that is to start the show. $7,300 option on DK definitely puts him on the board for an SP2 at the very least. 76 on FanDuel. He's highly unreliable. He doesn't project at like the top of the board. That's just a, middling kind of a projection here. But I do think that there's a little bit of potential here for a guy who was at one point in his career a very good pitcher. Has not been that guy for multiple seasons now, but does have upside in spots, and at times is not quite as bad as maybe his reputation is. A 4.89 ERA, but a 4.49 xFIP, that's a little bit better. It approaches respectability. Giving up 8.4% barrels, way too many hard hits at 44.7%, 91.1 miles an hour of exit velo is not good, 3.53% home run rate is uncomfortable. That's actually a little bit better than the 3.79 from last year and a lot better from the 4.93 that we were targeting like crazy 2 years ago. He actually wasn't completely atrocious last year, over 152 and 2/3. If you look into it, a 6.31 ERA is completely lousy, but a 4.21 xFIP is significantly better for what he should have been doing on the mound, what his form said he should have been doing, what the things that he can control say that he should have been doing. A 9.2% swinging strike rate, not great. 25.8% CSW, also not great. 11% barrels, 44.6% hard hits. We know that he's targetable with bats, But I also believe there's a little bit more than the 15.7% strikeouts that we've seen so far this season. He's going up against a Rockies lineup that is tied for the worst in baseball in the split for run creation against left-handed pitching this year. They're a totally non-threatening lineup. The 27.7% strikeout rate collectively overall this season. That's up a little bit from what the number is in the split, I think, but it's a very targetable number in the split. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It's in the article. Nope, 27.7% strikeout rate against lefties this season, actually. So that exactly matches their strikeout rate against left-handed pitching this season. So I think there's enough potential to target Corbin for price. Don't go crazy with it, but for a few shares on either side, I think he's on the board. Jake Bird on the other side, going to be an opener. I believe this is a traditional bullpen game, but there were expectations that Carl Kaufman was going to get a few innings. Let me see if they called him up. That was they had not called him up when I last looked. They did call him up. 51 minutes ago, they called him up. He had been on the taxi squad. So the expectation was that he was going to get a few innings out of the bullpen tonight. He's a total non-entity on the mound also. I would not roster Rockies pitching in this one. And I do think that the Nats bats are on the board. I also think the Rockies bats are moderately on the board in so much as they're facing a guy that we have targeted a number of times, especially if you're rostering a bunch of Corbin. Definitely hedge it off with a couple shares of Rockies, but don't go nuts with it. I mean, it's the Profar Tovar version of up top. No Chris Bryant is a downgrade for this lineup against a lefty. Ryan McMahon loses value against a lefty. Nolan Jones kind of maintains his value against a lefty so far. We'll see how that holds up over time, but so far it's been okay. But, I mean, we're talking about the version of the lineup that has Diaz hitting cleanup. Grichuk's been good. He's going to finish the year on a different team. But, like, we're not going out of our way for this team now with just Randall Grichuk. Like, there's not a lot of really good targets in this lineup. They could succeed. They could get there. It's certainly easy to drive the ball against Corbin. So, have some Rockies. But I think the higher priority lineup here is the Nats. Pretty good value pricing on some of the Nats. C.J. Abrams, we've talked about over the last couple of weeks. 10 home runs, 19 stolen bases, kind of coming around, becoming, hopefully for them anyway, the player that they were expecting in that trade. Still very cheap, 3,600, 3,000. 301 on base percentage is not ideal in the leadoff role, but 10 home runs, the 19 steals are. He's up to a 95 WRC plus, and he can give you a cheap shortstop that correlates well with Lane Thomas, Heimer Candelario, Joey Meneses, Keibert Ruiz. Ruiz, we've talked about a bunch of times, a 397 actual slugging. I checked it today. It's 456, I want to say. It's also in the article. Article's up on the site. We get deep into all these different things about these different players up there. 454, damn. So it's a 397 slugging and a 454 expected slugging. So the expected mark a little bit better for a kid who's hit 11 home runs in his opportunities this year as basically their everyday catcher. So I kind of like this lineup. Like is a strong word. I will play this lineup for cheap prices from 1 through 5. It really dies on the vine with Dominic Smith, Corey Dickerson, Luis Garcia, Alex Call. None of those guys have been good this season. Dom Smith, 272, 338, 355. That's a respectable enough front end of his triple slash. Only 5 home runs, a .084 ISO, 29.3% hard hits, 5.2% barrels. For a kid who was once expected to be a decent power hitter, it's just there's no power there whatsoever this year from the left side. Dickerson, kind of an older veteran at this point, 2 home runs and 132 plate appearances. Nothing to write home about with him. Garcia's a mix and match infielder. Alex Call has been serviceable, but more against left-handed pitching. 6 home runs on the season, 9 stolen bases, a 73 WRC plus. Nothing to really go out of your way for in the bottom 4 hitters here. But I think the top 5 at least is like mix and match value plays. Put them together with some stacks going up against a bullpen game from the Rockies. You can do worse than targeting a bullpen game from the Rockies with Jake Bird opening it, Carl Kaufman. Kaufman, if I put him in here real quick, 2 ends. Yeah. 9.5% strikeouts, 11.9% walks. Does that sound targetable? In 17 and 2/3, 3 traditional starts. I think a couple innings out of the pen are in there as well. Is short outings on most of them. 6.52 xFIP, 95.7 miles an hour of average exit velo, 56.3% hard hits. I'm interested in Nationals bats for that. So enough justification there to go to the Nats for sure. What? Oh, damn it! I pasted value. There we go. Had to get that formula back. All right, so we talked about this one. So it's uncomfortable shares of Patrick Corbin. Definite interest in the Nationals bats. Some light interest in the Rockies bats just to hedge off some Corbin shares. Castro's in for McMahon. They updated that lineup. They did update that lineup. Didn't reload on Labs. Let me grab that. Thanks for the heads up on that. Let me update that real quick, and we'll take one quick peek. McMahon, like I said, loses a ton of value. I was still going to include McMahon in most Rockies stacks that I built, even with like the lefty starter. You figure they blow up Corbin, and he's, you end up getting McMahon against righties out of the bullpen anyway. That was my thinking with expecting to play him there. But now we're dealing with a version of that version of the lineup that updates to. So it's Profar, Tovar, Diaz, Grichuk now hitting cleanup, Jones, Talia, Trejo, Brenton Doyle, Harold Castro. So Castro's got a decent hit tool against left-handed pitching over time, but not like a ton of power, not a ton of run creation. 209 plate appearances this year, a 51 WRC plus. I guess I didn't really touch on like Brenton Doyle at the bottom of the lineup. 7 home runs, 14 stolen bases for him in 215 plate appearances. That's effective enough production for counting stats where if you're chasing Rockies bats, I would definitely include Brenton Doyle in that stack now. Trejo is a moderate option, cheap price in the middle infield, second base on DK, shortstop on FanDuel. The FanDuel price is better, but I'd rather have him at second than shortstop. Just more premium plays at shortstop today, I think. Toglia, first base and outfield. First base on FanDuel, 154, 233, 256 with a 103 ISO in 43 plate appearances this year. Supposed to hit, but has not hit. So really for me, if I'm going to Rockies, it's like Tovar, Diaz, Grichuk, Jones, and then pick your poison. Everybody knows I don't like Profar off the top. So that's a downgrade. Even with McMahon not being a great option against lefties, he was an okay option anyway against this lefty, plus the bullpen upside. So no McMahon, no Bryant. That's a downgrade to an already bad situation for Colorado. A little bit of a bump probably overall for Corbin. All right. Rockies and the Guardians. Ryan Yarbrough, not really an option in my opinion. 5,800, 6,200, 14.3% strikeout rate though in 38 innings over 5 starts, a 5.21 ERA, a 5.43 xFIP. Not a guy who gets himself in trouble. I just don't really expect all that much from him. I just want to check real quick if there's... Yeah, he's projecting out similarly across town. I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything with him, given the very low projection on a guy who, when he gets full innings, typically has been an okay pitcher over time. Just hasn't really done anything for us this year, and kind of a low expectation of innings overall. Across town at RG, they've got him at like 82 pitches, and I think that's somewhat realistic here. I think there's good upside for the Guardians. This is a spot where Cleveland was totaling out above 5, if memory serves. Yeah, strongly favored, a 190 minus 190 favorite with a 5-run total on the board in Vegas. That has me off of Yarbs entirely and somewhat interested in Cleveland. It's actually a really tightly packed board in a lot of spots today. A lot of spots that are like close for run totals. Not this one necessarily, but these guys. A lot of these games in the middle, kind of close run totals, fair run totals. For some expectation of offense here, not here so much. But a lot of like games that are projected out fairly close in Vegas. So it's just an interesting day of expectations for baseball. So we do have the Guardians as fairly strong favorites in their game. I think that gives us good cause to kind of leave Yarbs on the table for anyone that wants them. Even at price, I just don't expect much of a ceiling here. Logan Allen, on the other hand, 8,700, 9,400. I do expect a ceiling. I really like the spot for the kid. The only thing we worry about with him is innings. But he went 5 in that last start that he made, so I'm hoping for 5-6 as a realistic expectation. I understand if you want to take it off the board as kind of a risky play. If you're a little bit risk averse, maybe you go away from it and just lean into the 2 premium options. But he projects number 3 overall on my board here, and I'm going to go to him. He's been good all season. 67 1/3 innings in 13 starts, 24.3% strikeout rate, an 11.7% swinging strike rate, 3.21 ERA, a 3.94 xFIP. So I think there's good reason to go to Logan Allen. Even at price on FanDuel, 9,400, I think it's totally worth it here. Jake Swales says he likes Maeda and Allen for pitching, but everyone does. Yeah, I really like the Maeda spot as well. I think that's, we saw him succeed. Not that we're game log hunting, but we saw him succeed in that spot last week against Seattle. That's going to be a fun one to just have right back on the board. We were chasing it all last week. Kind of interesting. So Yeah, I like both sides of the pitching matchup in that one. They're two highly projected guys, but I'm all over Logan Allen in this spot. I think the DK price is great, 8,700, kind of a discount on the DK slate. He's full freight on FanDuel, but I expect that'll push him down in ownership compared to like what that projection looks like. Going up against the ridiculously bad Royals, their high strikeout rates, I'm happy to roster shares of Logan Allen here. Looking at the Royals lineup, if I'm chasing Royals hitters, it's Michael Garcia, it's Bobby Witt Jr., some shares of MJ Melendez. Even with a lefty on the hill, I think you have to include him. Hasn't been great for any actual statistics, but hits the ball very hard. 3,000, 2,700 hitting third in that lineup. He's just kind of a must, even with a lefty on the mound. Sal Perez, good power upside. Obviously, a 12.44 is above the magic number for home run upside. 16 home runs on the season for Sal, a 185 ISO. Bobby Witt, 16 home runs of his own, 28 stolen bases. Has been more productive for fantasy than he has for real life. Only a 96 WRC plus, only a 292 on base. But those counting stats are great for our purposes. So happy to go to Witt, happy to go to Sal, mix and match my way through the rest of this lineup. Like Matt Duffy at 2,100 on DK, 2,100 on FanDuel with triple position eligibility. He's a playable part. Decent hit tool from the right side of the plate going up against Allen. You could realistically see him getting involved, but it's not like he's been good. 128 plate appearances, 1 home run, an 88 WRC plus, a .077 ISO, 3.2% barrels. It's not a lot there. Kyle Isbell against the lefty, 2,600, 2,400. Edward Olivares has a believable mid-range power and speed, but hasn't been great this season. 93 WRC plus, 6 homers, 8 stolen bases in 262 opportunities. It's a growing sample. He hasn't really done a lot with it. Dayron Blanco, Nicky Lopez been kind of low end from the bottom of the lineup. So I think it's more Guardians on both sides, more Allen, more Guardians lineup. Steven Kwan kind of coming around a little bit, up to a 103 WRC plus. Hit his 4th home run in the season. Not that we're looking for him for home run upside. 15 steals. Just needs to get on base more. Just be an engine in this lineup. But this whole team's come around a little bit. Some of these guys up to respectability in terms of run creation marks. David Fry, his 132 is a little misleading. It comes in only 71 plate appearances. But $2,300 with the idea of a little bit of pop as a catcher. $2,300 on the DK slate. Catcher and outfield. Stupid. Is there anything dumber than giving a guy catcher and first base eligibility on FanDuel? It's the same goddamn position. Like, it's just dumb. Anyway, he's a believable part at 2,300, especially if he's hitting 6th. But I wouldn't buy into the ridiculous run creation number so far. We'll see what he becomes. But 303, 352, 45, 3 home runs in 71 plate appearances is playable. Bell, Naylor, and Ramirez, that's your focus. All 3 of those guys, Bell's pulling himself up to a reasonably good season. Still only costs $3,000, $2,800 at first base. What sucks is you have to decide between Bell and Naylor on the DK slate. So you get Fry over there with catcher eligibility. That's important for Fry, but deciding between those two guys kind of blows when you're stacking this lineup over there. On the FanDuel slate, you obviously have to decide between Naylor, Bell, and Fry, and that's kind of easy. It's just Naylor and Bell most of the time, and then mix and match Fry through a couple shares of one or the other depending on the stack. Andres Jimenez and Ahmed Rosario, both priorities from above the power hitters and behind the power hitters. Jimenez has come on a little bit, 9 home runs, 15 stolen bases, up to a 94 WRC plus. Rosario's the better correlation play from ahead of Ramirez, Naylor, and Bell. He's just not done a lot this season. 3 home runs, 9 stolen bases, only getting on at a 302 clip. Just a guy we expected to be a lot better. 41.9% hard hits, only 19.1% strikeouts against Ryan Yarbrough, who's giving up a lot of contact, if not a lot of premium contact. Rosario's in play. Ramirez and Naylor are the 2 stars for power in the lineup. And then you get down to the bottom with Miles Straw, Gabe Arias. You can mix and match those guys. Throwbacks says, what's up, Throwbacks? Oh, that reminds me. Best wishes to our pal Gundacker, who had a wrestling incident. I don't know if you guys caught that on Gundacker's Twitter feed. It's also in my Discord, the rotoscouts Discord, rather. It just sounds selfish. It's our Discord. The rotoscouts Discord. Gun put a link to the tweet. He and his opponent fell through the ring. I think it was a what is it? It's a work, not a shoot, right? Is that's correct wrestling terminology, right? A work is when it's fake and a shoot is when it's real, I think. Kayfabe, all that stuff. But it sounded like Gunn actually broke his nose and took a bump. So best wishes to our pal for a speedy recovery. Sounds like he's going to be back in doing some shows. So hopefully we'll get him on. He and I will do a show sometime together. That would be the X feed. Yes, excuse me. That new logo is so stupid. Are they actually changing the name of the company to X as well? Like it's just not going to be Twitter anymore. It's going to be X. I didn't even know that. I just thought it was a stupid logo. I made the mistake of at one point saying that Elon Musk could do whatever he wanted because I thought he was going to be our best chance to get to Mars, and he probably still is. And I'm a big fan of like space exploration and expanding and, you know, becoming a multi-planetary society and all of that for the betterment of the human race. Putting everything for the betterment of the human race through Elon Musk has turned out to be a strange bet, and he's making a lot of weird decisions like spending $40 billion to run a company into the ground. Feels like it saved Elon a ton of money by not using Twitter anymore. I'm banned on Twitter, so Elon is dead to me, says Trey. Yeah, I gotta watch what I say. Twitter's the only place I promote this thing. The 4 tweets I send out every day. Anyway. So this one was Logan Allen, yes, with enthusiasm. Guardian stacks, I think, yes, with, you know, expectations of some run creation, if not a little bit of power upside. Royal stacks, only limited doses and no real Ryan Yarbrough for me. He was trying to... Yeah, I remember I saw something about that he had... X.com was one of his first, like, forays into the space. And that didn't really work out. And then, like, yeah, he wanted to use it for PayPal. And, like, he's just always loved X, I guess. Whatever. Crazy person. Crazy, misguided fella. But I do hope that he continues his efforts in space. Because it is still our best bet to get to Mars and revitalize the space race. And, you know, at least we're not using the Soyuz to get to the space station anymore. I think. Anyway. So we're talking sharks, we're talking baseball, we're talking space station docking systems. The show goes all over the place. Let's see if we got lineups for this one yet. We got the Twins in. Do I have the Twins? I do have the Twins. So I was just referring to it a minute ago when we were talking about these the pitching options. Kenta Maeda, 8,600, 8,400, projects out really well. Good pitcher in a good spot. We just talked about this exact game last week with Maeda facing the Mariners last week. He struck out 9, had a really good game. There's plenty of upside here for Kenta Maeda at price. I think he's going to be super popular, particularly on DK. It just seems like a spot that a lot of people are going to be talking about, a lot of people are going to be going to. So I would expect popularity with Maeda, but I wouldn't really worry about it. I think it's just good enough. That last game he went struck out 9 of 21, allowed 2 runs on a homer, 3 total hits, and 6 1/3. It's not predictive, like I say in the article. You know, it's in no way at all predictive. Just because he did that last week doesn't mean he's going to do that this week. But it is representative of his talent against their deficiency. Right? They strike out way too much. He's a good strikeout pitcher. He's got upside in this spot. You know, therefore, that game is representative of what he might do. By the same token, Castillo on the other side was in this matchup last week also. He allowed 2 home runs, 6-inning, 3-run start, struck out 11 of 26 to kind of make up and still post a really good fantasy score despite giving up the 2 home runs and 3 earned in 6 innings. He's given up 2 home runs in 5 of his last 6 starts, but he's been basically good overall anyway. He allowed 4 earned runs and 6 total runs in 6 innings to the Rays, but otherwise none of those starts were all that bad. Overall, 3.04 ERA, a 3.65 xFIP, 27.7% strikeout rate, a 6.3% walk rate, and his swinging strike rate is just dominant at 15.4%. So I'm all over Luis Castillo in this spot. 10-6 on DK, 10-8 on FanDuel. Projects at the top of the board for me. It's him and Yu Darvish. They're the 2 name brands. They're the 2 pitchers that are ace caliber guys. Out of everybody in this board, those are the 2 guys that anybody would like realistically say, yeah, they are or have been in recent seasons ace pitchers. Everybody else falls into the bucket of like up-and-coming rookies, returning veterans like Maeda, who have been good over time and have produced good seasons, but have also been shaky at times. There's a lot of those types on this board. So Castillo is a pitcher that I trust highly. He's in a very, very good strikeout matchup. It's, again, a matchup of talent meets deficiency with his premium strikeout upside, his ridiculous swinging strike rate going up against the Twins lineup that's got a 27.3% strikeout rate collectively. It's a great target. So both pitchers, enthusiastic yeses, but I do think you can go to both lineups here because both pitchers do allow a little bit of premium contact. Castillo, I just mentioned the home run problem. Again, 2 home runs in each of 5 out of his last 6 starts. That's a little bit concerning. 44.3% hard hits on the season, 9.9% barrels, 90.3 miles an hour of exit velo, and a 3.96% home run rate. That's a little bit targetable with some of this Twins power. No Byron Buxton in the lineup, though. So we're getting the version of the lineup that runs Correa, Julian, Alex Kirilloff, Max Kepler, Matt Wallner, Willie Castro, Trevor Larnach. It's not great in terms of Minnesota's upside here. There is some premium contact in the lineup for sure. Some of these guys have okay output for power. Joey Gallo lurking down here with his premium contact numbers, his 17 home runs, but also his 41.2% strikeout rate. Just a lot of justification for going to shares of Castillo. Maybe he gives up another 2 long balls, has a 3-run game again, but still gets through 6-7 innings, strikes out 8 to 10 hitters. I'm good with that output on a weird slate for pitching anyway. That could still easily win the slate. So all over Castillo, minor shares of Twins. When I go to Twins, I definitely want to include Correa. That's still a discount. You're just getting a guy who is a good player, having a bad season. 232, 308, 409. Certainly not the season that anyone wanted from Carlos Correa, but still a good hard hit rate, good barrel rate, 12 home runs, 177 ISO, only 2% below average for creating runs. Where it's a player that we would expect to be 20+% above average creating runs. So it's a major dip in production, but you're getting him around average pricing. So you're not, it kind of is a wash, and there's a major ceiling there. Julian's been great at second base on a big tear over the last month or so, up to 307, 388, 540. Premium rookie, 3,300, 3,200, still very cheap at second base. Kirilloff's just been okay. 282, 373, 464 is good. 135 WRC plus is good. 8 home runs and 241 plate appearances, but not a great contact profile. Has never been much for premium contact. Strikes out a little bit too much for the limited power that he provides. But 2,800 is fine on DK. 31 on FanDuel at first base and outfield is totally fine. Kepler's got a ton of lefty power. We looked at Matt Wallner and his upside. 2,200 on DK. 2,000 on the FanDuel slate. There's believable upside for him. 308, 460, 436 over his first 50 plate appearances. 1 home run on the season. Not a premium option, but for price, there's definitely upside there. So we can go to Matt Wallner. In AAA, he had 11 home runs and 305 plate appearances. So it's not massive power upside, but it's believable power upside for the cheap price. Willie Castro's stolen a bunch of bases this year, 23 stolen bases, but only a 95 WRC+. Larnach, Vasquez, and Gallo, kind of mix and match options. But Larnach has believable lefty pop. Gallo's got very real lefty pop, but that strikeout problem. On the Mariners side, it's the same story. A lot of strikeout issues, but you can definitely go to them in small doses, expecting a little bit of home run opportunity. Mayda's given up an 8.8% barrels, 50.4% hard hits, 92.4 miles an hour of exit velo. So Julio's in play. Eugenio Suarez is in play. Teoscar's in play. Mike Ford moves up the lineup with Kelnick out. 2,700, 2,600. He's got 11 home runs and 121 plate appearances. Just wildly unbelievable 345 ISO, but it's another one of those spots, or maybe this is the one that I used as this example yesterday, but I'll say it again. When they don't raise this guy's price in conjunction with the ridiculous output, you can keep going to it. It doesn't have to be real because the price isn't up. So just keep going to it. It's perfectly fine to play Mike Ford, especially if he's hitting 5th as opposed to like 8th, where we've seen him a lot of times. Ty France, disappointing season, but a playable part, very cheap. Cal Raleigh, believable power upside behind the plate, 12.2% barrels, 14 home runs on the season and 322 plate appearances, a 198 ISO. Taylor Trammell back in the lineup, dead minimum on both sites, 56 plate appearances, 3 home runs. Some upside, a kid that they believed in, at least believed in coming up over the last 2 years, but kind of didn't do anything with 2 opportunities the last 2 years. 178 plate appearances, 160, 256, 359 with a 73 WRC plus, 8 homers 2 years ago. 117 plate appearances, 4 homers, 2 steals, 99 WRC plus last year. So hasn't seen full opportunities, gets dinged up from time to time, has suffered a few big injuries in his young career. At the dead minimum, you can target him for some shares if you're building a bunch of Mariner stacks. If I'm building 5, he's probably in 1 or 2 of them because just how the price works, assuming that he's hitting in the lineup. You'd rather get him up here, one of these spots, but he'll probably be down here. Colton Wong's been just awful this season. 1 home run, 1 stolen base, double-digit homers and steals each of the last 2 years. 15 and 17 last year, 14 and 12 the year before. He's just been dead at the plate, over 200 plate appearances this year. 32 WRC plus. Yikes. So that one was enthusiasm about both pitchers, minor positions with both stacks. This one, I am excited for the opportunity for the Cincinnati Reds. Let's see if we got the lineups. Oh, the Mariners lineup just dropped now that I'm done talking about it. So no Taylor Trammell. Bottom of the lineup. All right, let me drop this in real quick because it is a little bit different, and we've got time. All right, going back a game. So you've got the typical Crawford, Julio, Eugenio, Teoscar, and then Mike Ford version of the lineup here. Ty France also there. But we pivoted to Tommy Murphy instead of Cal Raleigh. Similar power upside. There's not a gigantic difference between those two hitters. They both strike out way too much. They both have believable power. 16.2% barrels for Tom Murphy so far this season, 41.9% hard hits. 6 home runs and 119 plate appearances. Pretty good, 250 ISO. Last year was a small sample, but 2 years ago, 11 home runs in 325 plate appearances. So a decent right-handed catcher with a little bit of pop for 2,600, 2,500. Dylan Moore in the lineup at 2,100, 2,400. No Trammell. We get Cade Marlowe, who I don't really know anything about here. Let me pull up Marlowe. Not a guy on my prospect radar, really. 26 years old. Traditional scouting's got him at a 40 grade hit tool upside to it is 35, 40, 45 power. Yeah, not much of a prospect, like a graduated prospect who never really was much. This year in AAA, 11 homers, 25 steals is pretty good. Last year, AA, 20 homers, 36 steals. Moderate. There's mid-range power and some pretty good speed here. I don't know that, given the output in the minors, I'm kind of surprised by where these traditional scouting grades had him. This is why, you don't want to always focus on just what the prospect reports say, because he's outproduced that kind of a grade prospect-wise in the minors. He's old for playing in AA last year at 25, AAA at 26 this year. So it's not a guy that I would say is going to come up and turn into a star by any means. But for the bottom of the lineup, he's a lefty hitter. So let me pop him in here. See if he pulls a projection. He might. Looks like a black dot projection, not a lot of value. So it probably didn't actually pull a number behind there, not pulling a home run mark. So there's probably nothing in the backbone projections for him. But given that output in the minors, double-digit home runs, double-digit steals, there's a little bit of believability. If we're going to play Taylor Trammell, you'd play Cade Marlowe. It's the exact same situation. So, interesting version of the lineup there. Not a priority target for me for stacks. I prefer the pitching on both sides of this one to the hitting on either side of this one, just to reiterate. Let's jump into this Reds game. I'll go back to labs here. Let's see. We got Rangers and the Astros lineups are out, so I'll grab the Rangers lineup while I tee up the matchup between Graham Ashcraft and Colin Ray. I don't know that anybody really wants to go to these guys. I don't really see any reason to go to either one of these pitchers. I think there's at least believable ability on both sides. Colin Ray, 19.5% strikeouts this season, a 4.64 ERA, a 4.50 xFIP. On the other side, Ashcraft, lower end strikeout pitcher, 15.8% strikeouts, a 5.77 ERA, a 4.87 xFIP. I just don't think it's a spot where we really need to tangle with it outside of if you want to throw a couple value darts on Colin Ray on either site or Graham Ashcraft on DK, but not really at the FanDuel price. you can take a few shots at it. It's risky. It's a really thin path to success on both sides. You can see they project as essentially the exact same play. 2.79 in my FanDuel model versus a 20.79 versus a 20.76. I just don't really see any real need to go to pitchers that I'm typically targeting for upside, targeting for some power, especially not like with the Reds with Colin Ray, who is my preferred out of these two pitchers, given a little bit more strikeout upside. With the Reds projecting for that much power upside, some very good run creation marks. It's a team I want to get to, and it takes me out of any kind of reasonable thought that Colin Ray would have a really good game here. So I'm not really looking at either one of the pitchers. I'm definitely targeting Reds bats. I'm probably going to play some Brewers bats. Just look at all the value pricing. This alone is reason to go to some sets of Brewers bats, or reason that they'll come through some of the optimizers, especially on FanDuel, where you get triple position eligibility from two of these guys, dual position eligibility from Turang. Not so much on DK, given the Reds lineup just dropped, given the lack of multi-position, but they're a value stack for sure in a good matchup against a lousy pitcher. So I think there's reason to go to Brewers bats here as well, but I greatly prefer the red side. So we'll see what we did with the lineup. I think it's exactly what we had in for the projected. Looks pretty familiar. Oh, was Spencer Steer in there? I think Steer wasn't in that projected for some reason. So that gets even better. I'm pretty sure Steer wasn't in there. So just a dynamite lineup. Ellie De La Cruz off the top. TJ Friedl, Matt McClain, Jake Fraley. All of those guys have been productive for power, for speed. All of those guys have been creating runs. Ellie actually a little bit below the water line. Struggling to keep his face above water right now, but they lowered his price. $5,900, $3,700. Getting a little bit cheaper to roster Ellie, which is good. I mentioned that the other day when we were talking about him. They had him at like $6,400, and it was just like, all right, I know the kid's gonna be a star, or I think the kid's gonna be a star, and he's produced outrageous games so far, but he's also a kid who's striking out 31.6% of the time, has just a 4.7% barrel rate, now is below average for WRC+, only a 174 ISO. So, with expectations of stardom and massive potential for output on any given slate, it's good that they're bringing his price down a little. 273, 322, 447, 17 stolen bases already and only 174, 5 home runs. Going to be a great player. TJ Friedl is cheap. He helps average down these two prices. $4,300 for him, given a 7 home run, 16 stolen base season, 13% better than average creating runs across 314 plate appearances. Definite upside there for him. He's not cheap on FanDuel at $3,400. Doesn't do the same thing that 43 does for you on DK, but definitely a playable part from the second spot in the lineup. 8.81 in the home run model. He's only got a 1.8% barrel, 25.7% hard hits. Makes the 7 home runs a little bit unbelievable. Makes maybe the 8.81 home run mark a little bit exaggerated, but everybody's getting a push from Colin Ray here. Ray giving up 42.3% hard hits, 90.2 miles an hour of exit velo, pushing 4% home runs. So there's definite power upside. Matt McClain, $5,700, $3,900. Very pricey, totally worth it. He's been a star since he got here. 305, 371, 528, a 224 ISO, a 137 WRC+, 10 homers, 8 stolen bases, 11.6% barrels, 42.8% hard hits. He's been excellent since he got here. So I'm happy to go to McClain. Chuck Tusa says he's not Acuna yet. Yeah, I'm assuming that's referring to Ellie. And yeah, not just yet, but we'll get there. Maybe next year. Oh, Gun's here. What's up, Gun? Gun says it hurts worse than it looks. I assume the old schnoz there. I took a little bump on the schnoz too. Got through an empty beer can at my face. I got a little cut on the nose. I feel you. I think yours hurts a little bit more than mine probably does. That was wild though. When you sent it out on Twitter initially, I was like, it's or when I saw it, I think you retweeted the wrestling organization's initial tweet. I just figured it was a setup. But then when you said you actually took a bump, that I felt a little bad for chuckling at it. I'm glad you're okay though. So let's see what we got here. So continue to go down the Reds lineup. Jake Fraley, $4,600, $3,300 helps you average down the other prices. Another guy, 7.2% barrels, 31.7% hard hits. Last year was 7.3 and 27.4. Maybe the 14 home runs are a little bit unbelievable, but he's more of the type that when he makes premium contact, the ball really, really goes and he hits home runs. So it's not entirely unbelievable for Fraley. 214 ISO, 16 steals to go with the 14 home runs. Just excellent for power and speed through this lineup. Spencer Steer's been really good all season. 14 homers, 9 steals, a 118 WRC+. 277, 363, 461. Has cooled a little bit in the triple slash, but still a very good option for cheap pricing, multi-position eligible on both sites. Votto, major power upside, 8 home runs. We don't care that he's below the Mendoza line. Still creating runs 12% better than average in his 102 plate appearances. 13.53 puts him second on the team behind today's overall home run pick, Christian Encarnacion Strand. Come on down. 3,200 on DK, 2,800 on FanDuel. First base only on DK kind of sucks because you got to decide between him and Votto. First and third on the DK on the FanDuel slate. You don't worry about it anyway, but it's nice to have him at different positions and have him only at 2,800 on the blue site. 304, 333, 435 over his first 24 plate appearances. Already has a homer on the board. Has been involved in everything since they called him up. Love the spot for Encarnacion Strand. 15.51 in the home run model today. Major source of power potential. Tyler Stevenson, good catcher option on DK. Playable part on FanDuel. Will Benson, a little bit better than that for only 3,200. I actually like the Will Benson play. Use him as a wraparound. He's getting on at a 390 clip over his first 164 plate appearances, 9 stolen bases, 6 home runs, a 236 ISO. So he's been delivering individually and as a correlated scoring play. I think you can use Will Benson a lot more than the field probably is. Chuck says if this were 2 months ago, Castillo would be top owned by a lot. He's been scargling, as the kids would say. Yeah, those homers have just been funky, but the strikeout upside's still there. I'm really not that worried about Castillo. I know we looked at his pitching profile the other day when in last week's matchup, and it was like the velo was down a little bit. There were some potential bumps, but then he went out and struck out. What did I say? 11, 12, whatever that was. There's just potential for strikeouts again in this matchup again. So yeah, he could get dinged for power, but I'll let the field be behind the curve on him, and I'll hopefully get him in a great spot. I like those opportunities. Could be Travis loves Benson for the reach around. Greg says hasn't recovered from that Trejo homer against the Yanks. With you. Corbin Carroll is Steven Leibowitz's darn pick. Not like he's taking a big leap there. He says, hey, anytime you're picking any individual guy and you're saying, hey, that's my guy to hit a home run today, even if you're talking about like Shohei Ohtani or whatever, you're still taking a bit of a leap. That's why those are such, profitable bets when you hit them if you're betting player props. DJ Stoner asks who's going to hit for the cycle. Let me think it through. What about Ellie De La Cruz to go for his second career cycle before he gets to his 200th plate appearance? How sick would that be? I'll go with that one. Why not? I just want to get to this Reds team today. I think we're going to be a little overweight to the Reds. I'm not sure how popular they are. I imagine they're pretty popular in this spot, but I'm going to have a lot of Reds. Same time, I referred to it when I was talking about Ashcraft. I think there's opportunity to go to the Brewers. Christian Yelich is having a dynamite season, 288, 374, 478, 190 ISO, creating runs 32% better than average. Rumors of his demise greatly exaggerated before the season started. He's been excellent all season long. Walking at an 11.4% clip, only strikes out 21% of the time, 53.8% hard hit rate. It is hard to match a hard hit rate like this with a strikeout rate and a walk rate like that and a triple slash like this. He's just a dynamite player. He's just, the expectations for him to hit like 40 home runs this season or whatever were just misguided. He's just not that guy, but he's an excellent player. 5,300, 3,800, totally affordable. Contreras, Adames, flawed players. 269, 345, 438 for the catcher is okay. A 168 ISO is fine. 114 WRC plus is good. 10 home runs as a cheap catcher, that's fine to go to. Adames, 210, 294, 408. He's difficult to trust. He's creating runs 11% behind the curve, but when he connects, the ball travels. There's no denying it. 17 home runs to lead the team on the season, 13.8% barrels. Only cost you 4,600, 3,300. So any worries about struggles or, a lack of consistency or reliability are already baked into that shortstop price. So that's fine. And then you get all these different value guys, which again, it's not a great set of players. Jesse Winker's been terrible this season. Andrew Monasterio's been productive, but only over 98 plate appearances. Sal Frelick is a prospect who's expected to hit. He's only made 8 plate appearances. Is more of a like hit tool and speed type of a prospect. So I don't. Yeah, he's fine for 3,000, 2,600, but he's not like a major priority. You have to roster the Brewers so that you can get to him type of an option. Owen Miller, Bryce Turang, Joey Weimer. Okay output for counting stats for Weimer, as we've talked about a few times this season. He's sitting at 84 WRC plus though. Miller at 88 WRC plus. Had his moment earlier in the season. 5 home runs, 13 stolen bases, an okay triple slash. But there's not a lot of priority here outside of just they're very cheap. They help you get to other things with all their multi-position on FanDuel, all these cheap prices on both sites. So there's good reasons to go to the Brewers in an easy matchup against Graham Ashcraft at home. Arcathelza says Brewers will either light Ashcraft up or Ashcraft will smash, no in between. I actually kind of agree with that. That's why I do think there's a little bit of room for Ashcraft shares, especially 6,800 on DK. It's not like a big price tag or anything. This is appropriate to his ridiculously bad output so far this year. But I do agree. It's the Brewers are that kind of a team where like they'll have some big games. They'll have some big games, or they'll just die on the vine and give a decent game to the opposing pitcher. Shannon, this isn't the confirmed version of the Brewers lineup, but that must be what they did the last time out against right-handed pitching. That's how Schmabs puts together their projected lineups. So no real interest in the pitching, but a few value darts is fine on either guy with low expectations. Low expectation value darts. Colin Ray slightly preferred, even though I greatly prefer the Reds bats, and they're showing a ton of power. Reds bats is a high priority for me. Brewers bats is a good value option with decent upside, decent expectation of production. Rangers and the Astros battling for the heart of Texas in Houston tonight. Houston did not get Jordan Alvarez back. That sucks. Downgrade for Houston from where I had him in the home run model. Downgrade for Houston from where I had him in the power index and all of that stuff. And what I wrote about Jordan Alvarez obviously doesn't apply today. That sucks. I was expecting him back. Johnny Gray, 8,700, 8,800. A little bit of an uptick. Decent projection already. Definitely gets an uptick from no Jordan Alvarez. Hasn't been great this season. 19.8% strikeouts. A 4.47 xFIP is okay. The 3.31 ERA is obviously very good, but a little bit misleading from what he actually has been this season. Not giving up a ton of premium contact. 6.1% barrels is fine. 35.8% hard hits. 3.10% home runs. I'm not worried about John Gray. And now I kind of want to get to more shares because I don't expect he's going to be crazy popular. And with no Jordan, that's definitely a downgrade to that lineup. So I can get a few more John Gray shares than I was planning on getting to. 8,700, 8,800 is a pretty good price. And he's been a better pitcher over time. 25.7% strikeouts last year, 24.4% the year before. Decent ERA and xFIP numbers over time. This was in Colorado. So a lot of that is, any power in there or any, higher than expected run creation marks. 3.46 xFIP last year, 3.96 ERA. Very, very good last year. So I expect more from John Gray. Turned down a trade offer for him in the Dynasty League, though. Cheap contract, just not enough strikeout upside where I want to prioritize him. Like what I'm trying to do with starting pitching in season long is just have very high strikeout rate, couple of starters, and then hedge it off with high strikeout rate relievers. Like I've talked about in redraft leagues, I only draft relievers to moderate success this year. We'll see how it finishes out. I haven't been good at managing my teams this year. But for that league where we're locked into having to play a few starters because innings pitched is a category, I'm just targeting like premium, couple of starters, and then holds plus saves as a category. So I get away with rostering some relievers, but Gray doesn't meet that profile. I do think there's upside on this slate, though, for DFS purposes. The price is fine. The projection's good. I think you can hedge that with some Astros stacks, though. Mauricio Dubon hasn't been good this year overall, 85 WRC plus, but he hit his fifth home run late to be the hero, I think yesterday, maybe the day before. 5 homers, 6 stolen bases. Not a great option. Certainly not Jose Altuve in the leadoff spot. Bregman's been okay, 5,400, 3,300, 16 homers on the year, 250, 343, 419. 14% better than average creating runs. If you're building Astros stacks, you definitely want to include Alex Bregman in them. Kyle Tucker's been very good this season. At one point, he was down a little bit, and then I blinked, and he's up to 302, 379, 514, 17 homers, 18 steals, a 144 WRC plus, a 212 ISO. So Covering his end in Alvarez's absence, like absinthe. Covering his end in Alvarez's absence. With 6,200, 4,000 though. If you're building Astros stacks, he's a key part of them. I don't see building an Astros stack that doesn't include him. Maybe a couple if you're getting carried away with it. But out of the handful I expect to have, I think I want him in all of them. Jose Abreu, not great. 3,900, 2,600. Arguably a little high priced at 3,900 on the DK slate. I know he's come around a little bit in the last month and change. 8 home runs, a 77 WRC plus now, but that's just not been good for him this year. Chas McCormick has been very good all season. 12 homers, 11 steals, a 144 WRC plus in his 236. He would definitely be a part of my plans. Like priority bats in an Astros stack are Bregman, Tucker, and Chas McCormick, and then everybody else is a bolt on. Jainer Diaz has been really good with a 12.9% barrel, 46% hard hits, 11 homers and 210 plate appearances. Good catcher eligibility for only 4,100. Pena, Myers, and Maldonado kind of mix and match options late in the lineup. Brandon Bielak going for the Astros, 7,800, 8,700. Doesn't project well for me going up against the high-octane Rangers, even without Corey Seager in the lineup. I think it's no Corey Seager and no Adolis Garcia again as well. So that's actually a downgrade too. I didn't notice that. Downgrade on both sides of the bats. Yeah, Shannon, thanks for pointing that out. I just saw your note after I noticed that, but I appreciate you pointing it out as well. So yeah, that's a downgraded version of the lineup. I guess maybe you could get away with some shares of Bielak. 7,800, 8,700. That projection should probably be a little bit stronger given the current nature of this lineup. Josh Young hitting cleanup. Jonah Heim 5th. Duran up to 6th. Brad Miller, we've talked about being a viable option at 2,100, 2,000. Middle infield eligibility at both spots on DK has a lot of value for that hitter. Over time, he's been a pretty productive guy when he gets into games, just is a part-time player at best. 7 homers in 241 last year, 20 homers in 377 2 years ago with a 227 ISO. Yeah, Miller's a playable part down lineup, but that's a definitely downgraded version of the Rangers lineup. Leody Taveras I still like a lot. Josh Smith I could take or leave. Top end is fine with Semien, Nathaniel Lowe, Josh Young, Jonah Heim, and Duran. Those would be my priorities. Jankowski's been good with 15 stolen bases and a good triple slash, but kind of a non-priority. Good correlated scoring piece. If you need to offset some price for 29, you could use him instead of Ezekiel Duran, but it's not like it's that big a price difference. And I'd probably rather just take my second base share there if I'm not using Semien, let's say, and going to like some of the middle of the lineup. Depends on what you're doing and how you put it together. At least there's a lot of multi-position. A lot of cheap guys down here, a lot of multi-position. Less so on FanDuel, but easier to build lineups on FanDuel just in general. So they're playable. Bielak, 18% strikeouts, 4.72 xFIP, but 3.46 ERA is definitely a lot better than the xFIP. 48.5% hard hits, though, 11.1% barrels, 90-plus miles an hour of exit velo, 3.60% home run rate. I still very much prefer the Rangers side of this, I think, rather than the Bielak shares. You can throw some value darts, but he's not even at a great value price on the FanDuel slate at 8,700. I'd just rather go to John Gray for 100 more. I'd just rather go in different directions than Bielak. I could see a path to success. It's not off the board, but it's not one of my favorite plays here. So, re-ranking this one in my brain now from where I did it earlier in the day when I thought these lineups were going to be very different. Probably John Gray, still Rangers bats, Astros bats, Brandon Bielak. I think that's the order I would do it in. Matthew Tomlinson says ever since Gray got hurt, he gets only 3 or 4 strikeouts a game, yet not really into this Houston lineup. Yeah, the strikeouts are definitely down for Gray. I showed it a minute ago. He's a mid-20 strikeout guy each of the last couple of years. But just, yeah, against this downgraded lineup when he was already projecting okay for me, there's some history baked into that. There's some expectations of a return to form baked into that. So I think there's potential here. So Gray's my favorite spot of this, then Rangers bats, then Astros bats, and then Bielak. But all 4 parts are at least moderately playable. 4:55 on the clock. So much time. It's so weird to have this much time to just wander through and not worry about the clock. Coming up on an hour on the show, though. 3 games to go. We'll keep on rolling here. Who's targeting bats in this one? I think this seems like a good spot for bats, eh, gang? Adam Wainwright against Ryan Nelson. Waino returning to the mound after we kind of thought maybe they were just sending him riding off into the sunset when they put him on the IL. 6,000 on both sites. If you're a believer, even if you're a believer, I still don't think this is a great spot, even at price. If Waino was pitching to like last year's numbers, like would I play this against this Diamondbacks team in this spot? For 6,000, I guess I would, but it wouldn't be something to get carried away with. Last year, 3.71 ERA, a 4.10 xFIP, only 17.8% strikeouts, but wasn't bad for home run upside, wasn't bad for premium contact or anything. This year, it's just completely fallen apart. Adam Wainwright probably should have joined Albert Pujols in somebody's broadcast booth or something like that for this season. 11 starts, 51 2/3, 11% strikeouts, 5.6% swinging strikes, a 7.66 ERA, a 5.87 xFIP. It's making me sad reading these numbers. 11.7% barrels, 3.94% home runs. It's just not pretty. Against a low strikeout Diamondbacks lineup that is very good for power, that's very good for run creation, there's just all the reasons to go to Arizona here. So unfortunately for me, no shares of Adam Wainwright, even at 6,000. I just don't see it. It would really surprise me if Waino comes out and has like a dominant slate winning must-have kind of a start here. I just don't see it. Is it possible? Absolutely. Anything's possible. The sea could come bubbling up from the desert and consume the stadium today in Arizona. It's not likely, but it's possible. I'm not going to play the possible in Adam Wainwright having a slate winning score against this Diamondbacks lineup. I will go to the Diamondbacks. I will also go to the Cardinals facing Ryan Nelson. Nelson, 106 1/3, getting full opportunities, 20 starts, 16.1% strikeouts, 4.98 xFIP, 10.9% barrels, 91.2 miles an hour of exit velo, a 3.52% home run rate. Going to be forced to face a lineup with Paul Goldschmidt, with Nolan Arenado, Nolan Gorman, Tyler O'Neill. Major power upside for all of those guys. I feel like Ryan Nelson's going to be in a little bit of trouble in this one. The model agrees with me, projecting for 15 FanDuel points, kind of a short outing. 6,700, 7,000. If you're a believer, take your shots. I am very much not. I will have 0 shares of Ryan Nelson. I'll have a lot of Cardinals bats. I'll have a lot of Diamondbacks bats. Looking down the Cardinals' projected lineup, I like Brendan Donovan a lot in that leadoff role, particularly with triple position eligibility for 2,900 on the FanDuel slate. Just a great piece of correlated scoring who can produce a little bit on his own. 11 home runs on the season. A 146 ISO is not great, but 23% better than average creating runs. Like the spot for Donovan at cheap prices. Goldschmidt's a star. Somebody mentioned Goldie Revenge spot. Shannon Lambert mentions Goldie Revenge spot. I think he's had opportunities to extract his revenge on the Diamondbacks in the past. But sure, why not? 6,100, 3,800 at first base. He's a superstar. MVP last year, 16 home runs, a 131 WRC plus, 283, 371, 466. Playing basically like himself, 52.8% hard hits, pretty good strikeout rate, good walk rate. Love Goldie. Nootbaar, cheap price. This and this really help offset these two prices, as do these, to be honest. The cards are very easy to build with. Despite no multi-position eligibility on DK, it's just an easy lineup to put together given where they land in conjunction with one another and the price offsets in that lineup. You can build cards all day. And then the flexibility on the FanDuel slate is great. So Nootbaar, a good lefty bat, moderate home run power, decent stolen base upside, gets on base to correlate with Arenado and Tyler O'Neill from the right side and all their power potential. O'Neill, if you don't remember, last year, 14 home runs, 14 stolen bases in an up and down season, over 383 plate appearances. 2 years ago, 34 home runs, 15 stolen bases in his breakout year. Has always been a guy they've expected to hit for a ton of power. Deals with injuries every season, in and out of the lineups. That was like his full season ceiling type output, but he's got that kind of ability. 13.6% barrels, 43.9% hard hits, 2 home runs, 2 steals, and 117 this year. Hasn't been good and has been out of the lineup for quite some time with injury, but he's back. He's in my lineups if he's in theirs. Nolan Gorman, definitely a priority option at second base, second and third base on the FanDuel slate. Not that you're replacing Arenado with him that many times, but if you desperately needed to save 400 in your card stack for some reason, and that was the position you wanted to do it in, it's a reasonable replacement given his power upside. Arenado's got 21 home runs, Gorman's got 20. Arenado's the much better hitter. 291, 345, 23, 232 ISO with a 132 WRC plus versus 243, 325, 489 with a 246 and a 121. Arenado strikes out 17.6% of the time. Gorman strikes out 30.7% of the time. Very different hitters, but at least a interchangeable part. But you'll love his second base eligibility. That's his natural position. So getting him 3,400 at second base is just a priority for me in this lineup, particularly when Donovan slots into any other position that I want, basically. Jordan Walker's been really good. 3,200, 2,800. 276, 338, 442 over 37 plate appearances. 9 homers, a 50% hard hit rate, 8% barrels. 23.2% strikeouts, needs to walk a little bit more, strike out a little bit less, but he's been good. 17% better than average creating runs. Cheap, playable part that not a ton of people go to. Only outfield eligible now, but a playable option, particularly in a lineup that doesn't overwhelm you with outfielders. Like when we look at the Pirates in a minute, there's going to be 4 or 5 guys in that lineup that are all outfield eligible, and it's like, all right, you got to choose, you got to make a lot of choices between their best players at the same position. So lots and lots of enthusiasm about the cards. Enthusiasm. I need to slow my mouth down. The speed at which I'm trying to talk for some reason is overwhelming my ability to get these words out in the correct order. Geraldo Perdomo off the top, 4,100, 2,800. Shortstop and second base, 279, 384, 414 overall. I put in the article, I looked at his numbers from when they moved him to the leadoff role. Since moving to the leadoff spot, or in the leadoff spot this season, 121 plate appearances, 284, 368, 343 with a 99 WRC plus. So he hasn't been quite as productive, but he's only struck out 10.7% of the time, walked at an 11.6% clip. Just a really good table setting option ahead of these guys, even with the dip in WRC plus taken into account. A little bit of a downturn in his on base percentage. It's not 384, but 360 something. Still perfectly viable when he's at these prices. So you like getting him as your shortstop option. Plug him in with Ketel Marte at second base, 55.39. Perdomo helps pay for Marte, helps pay for Corbin Carroll, Christian Walker in a Diamondback stack. These guys are your priority bats. There's 4 power hitters here with low strikeout rates, lots of home run upside. 73 home runs for those 4 hitters so far in their 1,500 plate appearances. Average strikeout rate is 18% for Ketel Marte, Corbin Carroll, Christian Walker, and Lourdes Gurriel. Those are my priorities in Diamondback stacks. All 4 of those guys rather above average run creation marks. Then you get into the bottom of the lineup. That's Jake McCarthy, Emmanuel Rivera, Carson Kelly, Alec Thomas. Kelly's been really bad in 63 plate appearances this year, but as a kid that they were expecting to hit as a prospect as a catcher, 13 home runs in 359 2 years ago, 7 in 354 last year. Not been great for run creation, not been overly reliable, and lost his regular job, or lost his, grow into this job opportunity when they traded for Moreno. But Moreno's out of the lineup now. He got dinged up over the weekend. So we'll probably see some Carson Kelly. I think he's playable at worst at 3,000. McCarthy, Rivera, and Alec Thomas have been a little bit more productive. A little bit of power, a little bit of speed from each of those guys. Reasonable hit tool from Rivera so far. Good stolen base output from McCarthy, 22 steals in 236 plate appearances. But nobody in that bottom group is above average for run creation in their moderate samples. So this one was neither pitcher from me. Definite enthusiasm about both stacks. Call it a draw, basically, between the 2 stacks. I like both of them. They were at... this one spiked also, but this one was at a 9. I highlighted that for a reason. This was at a 9 early. It spiked by a full run. So the Diamondbacks up to a 5.48 against Wayno, and the Cards at a 4.6. I'm on board with both team stacks. Pirates, Padres. I mentioned Yu Darvish as being the other priority pitcher, or the other name brand pitcher anyway. Let me see here real quick. Brewers lineup dropped. You get Sal Frelick hitting cleanup. So Yelich, Contreras, Adames, Frelick, Monasterio, Miller, Turang, Jami Jones, Joey Weimer. No real changes. Nothing to worry about there. Pirates pods. So Darvish definitely a priority. Projects really, really well. The other name brand pitcher on the slate. 17 starts, 97 innings, 25.9% strikeouts, 4.36 ERA, a 3.76 xFIP, decent swinging strike rate, decent CSW, no real issues with power. It's Yu Darvish. He's pitching basically like Yu Darvish. No real surprises from last year's numbers. Last year, 25.6%, so up 0.3% in his strikeout rate. Walk rate's up a little bit, 4.8 to 8.1. The xFIP goes up a little bit. 3.10 ERA has gone up to a 4.36. Swinging strikes and called strikes and called plus swinging strikes right about the same. Nothing to worry about Darvish-wise. I think you can definitely target the Pirates. Like I said, 4 of their 4 best hitters are all outfielders on the DK slate. If you're going to stack Pirates, it's probably a better option on FanDuel where you can at least offset Henry Davis into the catcher first base spot, and then you've got their 3 best hitters as outfielders. But it's not a great high-end just like priority stack. I don't really want to go out of my way for Pirates here. They are... I thought I put their marks for splits. Yeah, 98 WRC plus puts him 20th overall against righties this year. 23.1 collective strikeout rate in the split against righties. An okay 173 ISO, kind of supported by Jack Suwinski up at the top. 19.1% barrels, 50.6% hard hits for Suwinski, 20 homers on the season. 273 ISO, 126 WRC plus for just 4,000, 3,200. That's just a good buy at any point, really. I'll take a few Suwinski shots, maybe as a one-off on FanDuel in lineups that don't have Yu Darvish in them, obviously. The stack overall is not great, though. Reynolds, McCutchen, they've been okay this year. Both above average for run creation. McCutchen nicely above average for run creation. They're both inexpensive. 10 home runs apiece, 8 steals for Reynolds, 9 for McCutchen. But we expect more from Brian Reynolds. McCutchen's had a good season. Apparently he's not going to go on the trade market. He and the Pirates have some sort of agreement where, hey, I signed here to finish out my career here. I want to stay here. Don't trade me. So they could probably get something for him, which kind of sucks. But I think I think he's going to round out his career in Pittsburgh. Decent season for him. 44% hard hits. I'm looking for, pluses and minuses. 121 WRC plus is really good. Only a 149 ISO despite the 44% hard hits because it's only a 6.9% barrel rate. Doesn't strike out all that much. 20.4% is fine and walks a ton. He's always been good at that. So just an on-base machine. 381 on-base percentage for McCutchen. Just keeps him in business for run creation. Carlos Santana, Henry Davis, Jared Triolo, Marcano, Andy Rodriguez, Nick Gonzalez. It's kind of a flawed but cheap bottom of the lineup. A lot of rookies down there. Andy Rodriguez, definitely a playable rookie. Henry Davis, their 3rd or 4th most playable bat, depending on where you want to slot McCutchen into that. Davis, 284, 381, 451 with a 129 WRC plus over his 118 plate appearances. Only cost you 3,100, 2,900. He's much more valuable, like I said, though, given the catcher eligibility on FanDuel. It gets him away from the 3 outfielders. Plus, obviously, you've got the util spot over there. Makes it difficult with all 4 of those guys at outfield on the DK slate. Because Davis is most definitely the next guy, my next man in after these 3 guys. Santana's playable, but not great. The memory of being a power hitter as a switch hitter. Rodriguez is a premium prospect, cheap catcher bat. 2,300. He's only made 18 plate appearances, but he's got a home run on the board already. So there's expectations of upside for him. Gonzalez, more a hit tool type focused player. Triolo, we've seen a little bit over 80 plate appearances. He's been decent. 82 WRC plus is okay. It's 18% below average, but it's okay for a rookie. 288, 338, 315. Not great. Playable. Padres against Quinn Priester. He's their other big call-up of the last week or so. He made 1 start last week. He went 5 1/3. That was the good news. That was like the only good news in that start. He went 5 1/3. Allowed 2 home runs, 7 runs on 7 hits. Only struck out 2 and walked 2 against the Guardians of all teams. But he did pitch 5 1/3 innings. So that's good. There's believable depth there at least. I'll give him one more shot here right now. 6,000, 6,800. He projects playably against the Padres lineup that I will definitely have a big hedge position on. It's like a 3-1. Like every 1 Priester, I want 3 shares of Padres bats. am not enthusiastic about the spot, but I think there's believable upside. The kid's got a plus curveball. He's got a premium curveball. There's big time questions about his control and command, and about whether he's going to be able to have an effective enough fastball to have everything else work well enough of it at the major league level, or if pitchers will just be able to sit on his fastball. Hitters will just be able to sit on his fastball. That's where he got dinged in the first start. We'll see what happens to him in the second start here, but believable enough potential in that if he hits this kind of a number, 25 on FanDuel, with upside to like a maybe quality start bonus. No, that's probably not in reach. Yeah, bonuses are a little bit of a stretch, but believable strikeout potential. But again, much more enthusiastic about the Padres side of the equation. So it's just a value dart only. It's a low confidence value dart. If you're at all risk averse, just don't do it. It's not worth doing if you worry about risk, worry about losing a couple lineups to the grinder here. Ha-Sung Kim off the top, very high end, very playable, multi-position eligible, cheap infielder. Second, third, and short on FanDuel. Second and short on DK. 4,200, 2,900. Having his best season in the major leagues so far. 12 home runs, 18 stolen bases. 20% better than average creating runs. Makes for a believable good option as a leadoff man ahead of Fernando Tatis, Juan Soto, Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts. That's 4-star players. I know Bogaerts doesn't look like he projects well because it's a red dot there, but remember that's just in conjunction between these guys and these guys. On the average and how that all aligns. He's had a down season overall, 263, 344, 403. This is Bogaerts we're talking about. But 11 home runs, 10 stolen bases, a 110 WRC plus. Not as productive as he should be, but his price has come down. He's easy to get to at shortstop, 4,800, 3,000. Plenty of upside for Xander Bogaerts. A guy I expect to have a better next 200, 250 plate appearances to round out the season. Soto and Machado are stars, 19 home runs apiece, 153 WRC plus for Soto, 113 for Manny in a nice job pulling his season together. Still pretty cheap for him too, 5,200, 3,800, 255, 312, 465, but a 210 ISO, 19 homers. So he's gotten himself together. Tatis is obviously a star. He's an outfielder only on both sites now. 17 home runs, 15 stolen bases, 133 WRC plus. It really only falls apart at the bottom. Cronenworth's been down this season, was good for correlated scoring last year. Camposano, cheap catcher option, 12.9% barrels, 54.8% hard hits in his 37 plate appearances, 2 home runs, but believable power potential as a cheap catcher option. Taylor Colway costs the minimum and hits left-handed. I did look at him, actually. He's in the article. He's the guy that I'm thinking of. If 29-year-old, yeah, 29-year-old non-prospect, never reached the show before. Just kind of getting an opportunity at the major league level. No real expectations for him. Trent Grisham, 2,800, 2,700. Kind of a playable part from the bottom of the lineup. 10 homers, 10 steals, a 102 WRC plus, 181 ISO, 13.7% barrels, 41.2% hard hits. If we're expecting Quentin Priester to get blown up, there's reason to believe that Trent Grisham would be a part of it. So, guy should probably hit higher up in the lineup, particularly when it's like this week. Like, I get using him as a wraparound from down there to reset the table for these guys. That makes some sense. But I think I'd probably rather have his premium contact finishing things off in that spot where they've been playing Cronenworth. So, enthusiasm about Yu Darvish. Definitely cheap on DK too, 9,400. 10,000 on FanDuel is also cheap. Cheap as relates to Castillo for sure. Cheap as relates to his talent level and a good matchup against the Pirates. I like that spot a lot. I expect it'll be popular on both sites, but it's one of those playably popular spots. You don't really care. Quentin Priester, I think, is playable. Given the prospect pedigree, there's major question marks. There's a lot of risk with it, but he's very, very cheap. Padres side of things is definitely playable. Pirates are a minor priority. So Darvish, enthusiasm, Padres bats, Quentin Priester, Pirates bats down here. Last game coming up. Blue Jays and the Dodgers. Arth Cathelza says he's stuck between Maeda, Gray, and Allen on DK. Yeah, I think those are all good prices. We'll swing back to that question when I jump over to the board overall to end the show. Monty, I appreciate you reminding me there, buddy. because I didn't remember. So that if I didn't remember, that means some of the viewers probably didn't remember. Do me a favor, hit the like button, you guys. That's all I ever ask. Really appreciate everybody coming to hang out for these shows. Got a decent view totals. Decent view totals is like compared to a lot of the shows from like these established sites. It's a little silly. I love seeing it. I love that you guys are coming out for this. So really appreciate all the support. Just hit the like button. If you haven't done it yet, hit the subscribe button just so you know when we go live. It's variable start times for this show. It's all over the place, at least within like the 4 to 4:30 hour half hour there. On weekends, it's a little bit variable, so good. It makes sense to subscribe. Check out the site. Follow the Twitter handle at rotoscouts. Give that one a couple follows if you haven't had it on x.com. Jose Barrios going against Michael Grove. 9,200, 9,800 for Barrios going against the Dodgers. That's a tough ask. 23.4% strikeouts on the season is fine. A 3.39 ERA, a 3.98 xFIP. He's been mostly good. He's been the good version of Jose Barrios. There's a believable path to success, but it's the Dodgers. It's a low strikeout team. There's other good pitching options on the slate. I expect he'll be relatively low owned at those prices, so I think you can go there. But for me, it's kind of small doses. I don't think I want to get carried away with Jose Barrios shares just because he's going to be low owned, because I just think it's too difficult to spot going up against all those low strikeout rates for the Dodgers, all those potential home run marks for the Dodgers. He's gotten his home run issues from last year under control. 35.1% hard hits, 87.6 miles an hour of exit velo, 2.66% home runs. I don't worry as much about the power in every start for Jose Barrios, but there's plenty of guys who hit home runs against anybody in the Dodgers lineup. So in this spot, I would worry a little bit about the power. I would worry about the Dodgers' ability to just put a bat on ball. Three of the 4 stars at the top of the lineup, all with very low strikeout rates in the teens. David Peralta with a low strikeout rate in the teens. Gets a little aggressive around like James Outman, Max Muncy with high strikeout rates, but those guys have ridiculous power potential. So I don't love the spot for Jose Barrios. I think it's a playable spot, but 9,800, I'd just rather spend that money elsewhere on FanDuel. Handful of shares. I expect he'll be very low owned, so it wouldn't be difficult to be ahead of the field. It's a better option at 92 on DK, but it's still not great. Good pitching can beat good hitting for sure. He has that level of talent. But it's not like we're talking about a 30% must-have strikeout option here. It's a 23.4% strikeout rate. So let's be realistic about Jose Barrios. Have a little, don't have a ton. I think that's the right move. Michael Grove, 6,300, 6,600. At 20.4% strikeouts, there's maybe enough potential there, but I just think he's too targetable for power to tangle with the Blue Jays. 42.1% hard hits, 3.91% home runs, a 6.40 ERA to go with a much better 4.41 xFIP on the season. Puts too many guys on at 1.54 on the whip. 27.8% CSW is okay. 10.4% swinging strikes is fine. 8.5% barrels is higher than you'd want, but it's lower than Jose Barrios on the other side. 42.1% hard hits though, and the home run rate is what I'm looking at here. So I think it bleeds through to the power numbers. 4 guys above the magic number, with Brandon Belt also pushing the magic number. Dalton Varsho closer to it on the Blue Jays side. All those guys relatively cheap to affordable on both sites. I think I'm just more interested in Blue Jays bats going up against Michael Grove here. It's an extreme dart throw. You can see he does not project well in my model. So a low end pitcher, no real confidence in the upside there. If you wanted it for 6,300 for a few value shares on DK, you can do it. There aren't a lot of strikeouts in the Blue Jays lineup, but there are certainly some. He could find a few. He could find enough upside to pay off that price. The Dodgers do have a good shot at winning the game, but I don't love the spot. So for me, no real interest in either pitcher. Darts at different levels, like overpriced dart for low ownership again in a bad spot for Barrios. Cheapo dart with low expectations in a bad spot for Michael Grove. Bats on both sides, though, I think you can fire away. I think there's enough reason to play the Dodgers bats against Jose Barrios at what I would hope would be lower than usual ownership. They're still very expensive. Obvious priorities in Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, and Max Muncy off the top of the lineup there. And then those three playable lefties with David Peralta, Jason Hayward, and James Outman before it gets to mix in kind of guys in Miguel Rojas, who's been bad, and Joni Hernandez, who hasn't really gotten much of an opportunity yet. Those guys are mix-ins, but 1 through 7 for the Dodgers is very playable. The three lefties at the end of the lineup in the outfield help to offset the earlier expensive players. But like $4,900 from Max Muncy at third base on DK is cheap. $3,800 on FanDuel is maybe $200 off his price tag. He's a 196, 327, 477 hitter. I get where they're coming from, but even with that, he's creating runs 18% better than average. He's got 24 home runs on the season, 18.3% barrels, 49.7% hard hits. We just know that this is what Max Muncy does. He shouldn't be that cheap on DK. Smith, Freeman, and Betts are superstar caliber players positionally. Smith is probably the best catcher bat in baseball. It's an argument between like him, Sean Murphy, maybe Adley Rutschman's in there. Freddie Freeman is inarguably one of the best bats at first base. 331, 412, 585, a 254 ISO. Just another outstanding season for Freddie. And then Mookie Betts with triple position eligibility on FanDuel, 2 positions on DK. It's at the point where like, all right, I really like the multi-position asset that Mookie is, and he does play multiple positions in real life. But to make it more realistic for DFS or to make it harder to roster this team, they should probably like pick at least 2 positions on FanDuel. Giving him second and shortstop is fantastic. So I just love that asset on the FanDuel slate. Blue Jays side, premium bats up top as usual. George Springer, Bo Bichette, Brandon Belt, Vladdy Guerrero. Plenty of power potential there. 13 home runs, 16 home runs, 17 home runs. Vladdy's been a little bit down in terms of his overall output, but we've talked about it a number of times. The 13.4% barrels and 55.6% hard hits are both actually up from last season. So there's plenty of reason to go to Vladdy. I just remembered I never put my placeholder lineups in, so I'm going to do that while I'm talking about the Blue Jays here. Bichette's been a star for most of the season. They have gone through a little bit of a cool down in some recent weeks, but Springer's kind of normalized his season. He's got 13 home runs, 13 stolen bases. Bichette's got 16 homers. He's got a 127 WRC plus. Matt Chapman still hits the ball extremely hard, 17.8% barrels, 59.1% hard hits across the course of the season. He's been up and down in terms of his power output, only 12 home runs, still a 194 ISO. He had 9 of those 12 home runs, I think, by the end of May. So he's definitely cooled in terms of the power output, but the run creation's still been there, and he still smokes the ball when he makes contact. Third base eligible, cheap pricing, easy to get to. Brandon Belt, kind of a power outage in terms of only 8 home runs, 262 plate appearances, but has gotten going a little bit for power. 187 ISO, still a 128 WRC plus and a 370 on base percentage, and he's really cheap, 3,100, 2,900. It sucks that you have to make a decision between Belt and Guerrero again on DK. They took away his outfield eligibility. FanDuel, obviously, you can get both of them. Whit Merrifield, good hit and speed guy, correlated scoring play. Probably should hit in a different spot in the lineup. Get him ahead of maybe Matt Chapman would be a good idea. Maybe slide Chapman to 6 and let Merrifield hit ahead of both Chapman and Dalton Varsho. But they're using him as a table reset for the bottom of the lineup with Varsho, with Alejandro Kirk in his power upside. Kevin Kiermaier, kind of a mix-in play. 5 home runs, 11 steals, a 111 WRC plus. He's mostly here for defense, but he's a playable piece at 2,600 on either side in the outfield. Let's see what else we got here. Steven Liebowitz says, I think there's better spots to go to. Yeah, I think so too. Varsho's been a waste. He's been okay for counting stats, 12 homers, 12 steals, but yeah, 73 WRC plus has been bad. They have to be regretting that trade at this point. Lourdes Gurriel's been outrageously good for power and run creation this year. And then Gabriel Moreno's been really good. Got hurt, but had been really good in his opportunities up to that. So yeah, let's move over. We'll take a look at the pitching board, and then we will get out of here and build some lineups now that I do have placeholders, and I'll be able to enter the tournament tonight. No surprises. We talked about all of this. Actually, this is probably a surprise too on the relative board as we put it all together. But it's a short pitching slate. Really, the faith is in these guys. John Gray even is maybe a little bit of a question mark. The real name brand options. If you're just into safety at pitcher and you just want to not worry as much. Certainly either one of these spots could get blown up. But if you're into like, I just want to book safe options at pitcher, you're just spending up on the two aces. Those are your name brands. Those are two very good spots for those pitchers. I think they project basically equally here. So the discount on Darvish comparative to Castillo has appeal. It's probably a better matchup overall for Darvish against Pittsburgh than it is for Castillo against Minnesota. But Minnesota's strikeout potential is pushing Castillo up to the top of the board. Logan Allen, I love the spot for him against KC, but given the short innings concerns, I do see people potentially wanting to get away from it. If that keeps his ownership down, it just makes it more interesting for me in terms of being a good tournament play. I'll embrace the risk. I'll take on the exchange of maybe he only goes 5 innings and doesn't get me a quality start bonus, but there's nobody else on him on the FanDuel slate. And I'll take the strikeout upside against that KC lineup that he's had a couple good outings against already. Johnny Gray, a little bit of risk going up against Houston, but Houston definitely a diminished version of that lineup. And then on the other side of that matchup, Brandon Bielak maybe sees a little bit of an uptick from where this projection has him, given the diminished nature of the Texas lineup. But still a dangerous enough Texas lineup that I don't think I want to go to Bielak, really. 8,700 on FanDuel especially, you're just not getting him at enough of a discount to justify it. Like, I think I'd probably rather go to Graham Ashcraft or Colin Ray at cheaper prices than pay up for Brandon Bielak, even against this version of Texas. Still a lot of good hitters in that Texas lineup. Barrios against the Dodgers, we just talked about. I think the prices are too high to really justify the dart throw. Corbin, I think, is worth throwing a couple darts on. 7,600, 7,300. Projects okay, but going up against the worst lineup in baseball against left-handed pitching with plenty of strikeout potential, it's not great. He hasn't been good in years, but he does have his moments. And this could be one of them. For those prices, I'm willing to go to some shares of it. Maeda, definitely an option. Good price on him. He's probably, if I had to name a favorite with everything like price and all of that included, I do really like that Kenta Maeda spot again. I just think this is a little bit low for the strikeout potential that he's got in this spot. And he's a pitcher that I've succeeded with over time, and he's relatively cheap. So I like that spot quite a bit. Probably more than I like the Gray spot. Given that it's cheaper by $1,000 on FanDuel, probably more than I like the Allen spot. But again, with Allen's price going up, we'll probably pay for a ownership offset there. So I think there's some potential there. Anybody that I would want to go to, I don't think there's any reason to go to Waino. Jake Bird's an opener. Yarbs, I don't see. Ryan Nelson, I don't really see going up against St. Louis, where we're getting all that power upside. Grove, I guess, would be the next best guy. But as you can see, does not project well at all for me. He's cheap. There is 1 in 5 strikeout upside, but against Toronto, I'm just seeing too much power for him on the other side. So yeah, really for me, it's a lot of targets on the bottom of the board. It's a lot of good, healthy options up top. These guys greatly preferred, but I'll definitely throw some Priester darts, and I'll throw some Corbin darts. As much fun as that's going to be. With that in mind, guys, let me see if there's anything lingering in the chat. Andrew says, KC lineup seems like it's got less Ks than usual today. Did it? Might be some is it small samples. Let me take a quick look. Um, 17% for Nicky Lopez in 176. 21% for Isbell in 162, 19.5 for Duffy in 128. Duffy I mentioned as we were talking about it. I kind of think if I'm going to Royal Stacks, he's going to be included in a lot of them. Decent hit tool and a low-ish strikeout rate for 2,100 makes some sense in that lineup. It's just that I think that Logan Allen is good enough to find strikeouts against any one of those hitters. Like, none of them are really super low strikeout rates. Edward Olivares is the best of the bunch at 16.4. He's not an everyday fixture in the lineup, but he's one of the more regular parts in that lineup. But I think Allen has enough upside to succeed at a high level against these guys, the ones who are somewhat good at limiting strikeouts. And then these guys, while there's threat obviously from Sal Perez, from Bobby Witt, there's definite strikeout push from these guys. So maybe it's a little bit lower end than it would normally be, but this projection is taking that into account. So I like the spot here for Logan Allen. I'll get to tons, and I hope that the field gets away from him, particularly on FanDuel at that 9,400. Oh, sorry, Archithelza. Yeah, thank you for reminding me that you had asked that question. So the 3 options were Kenta Maeda, Johnny Gray, and Logan Allen on DK. Yeah, I think given that they're 87, 87, and 86, boy, that is a tough spot. I do have a lot of faith in the projection for Logan Allen there, and he projects out a little bit better. But if that 100 buys you something, or if you don't really care about a higher owned Kenta Maeda, I think I do probably, if I have to inject my opinion, my bias into it, I probably trust Maeda a little bit more. He's in a worse matchup. There is plenty of strikeout upside that'll give him a push, and I trust him a little bit more still than I trust the rookie. That's a really strong tie, though. I would probably go Maeda, Allen, Gray in that order, but really, really close, which is the opposite of the order that this has it in, obviously. This has it Allen, Gray, Maeda. I don't think you're making a mistake with any one of those guys. Let's put it that way. Serviceable enough answer. I know I kind of sat on the fence on that one a little bit. Bill Byers says he already dropped Logan Allen in, but feel better now that you're saying put him in. Yeah, I like the Allen spot, Bill. So no issues with that. Would definitely not try and talk you out of that play. It's a play I'll have quite a bit of at a higher relative price on the single starter site. All right, gang. I'm going to punch out. I'm going to start building some lineups with a nice amount of time to play with by comparison to where we punch out normally. Good luck out there. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. I really appreciate everybody hanging out. Pop into the free Discord. It's linked at the bottom. It's linked from the top of Rotoscouts, or just get in touch with me on Twitter or whatever if you need an invite. But Discord's just as free as the website is, so check out all the content up on Rotoscouts. Join the Discord, hang out, ask any questions in there. I'll be hanging around. I always am while I'm building lineups. So I'll see you guys later. Somebody go win something tonight.